I followed the young heir of Los Angeles for 7 years. He despised my humble origins and turned to be with Jennifer, a well-bred young lady who matched his status. I went to confront him, but Jennifer mocked me. Why would he marry you? Is he doing charity work? Later, I married his bitter rival, Vincent, and together, we took over the company he shared with Jennifer. By the time we met again, everything had changed drastically. He and Jennifer were homeless, wandering the streets. Seeing how close Vincent and I were, jealousy filled his eyes, and he begged me to love him again. I smiled and said, "Why would I be with you? Is it charity work?" I stood in the restroom, listening to the gossip outside the door. A sense of numbness filled my heart. Have you heard? George, the heir of the Sinclair family group, is about to get engaged to Jennifer from the Biddle family. Is that true? Our company has worked on several projects with Biddle Group, right? No wonder every time Jennifer comes here to see George, Melissa looks so upset. The rumors are that she's been with George for 7 years and thought she was going to marry him. Marriage? With Melissa's gloomy face that tortures all of us every day? If she became Mrs. Sinclair, she'd probably torture us all to death. It's gotta be Jennifer every time she comes back. She brings coffee for everyone in the company, right? Jennifer is not only kind-hearted, but I couldn't listen anymore. I opened the door and walked to the sink to wash my hands. The speakers, clearly not expecting me inside, immediately fell silent and hurried out. I splashed some water on my face, trying to wake myself up. The Melissa they were talking about was me. And just as they said, I had been with George for 7 years. 7 years. I looked at myself in the mirror, my eyes dark and hollow from nights spent working on proposals. I was a shadow of my former self. After joining the Sinclair Group, I worked tirelessly day and night to prove I could match up to George at 25 compared to the 18-year-old me. I had lost my youthful glow, and compared to Jennifer, who had been pampered since childhood, I, with nothing but a decent work ethic, had no real comparison to her. Tears blurred my vision, dropping onto the sink. The reflection in the mirror looked pale and pitiful. After leaving the restroom, I had already composed myself. I grabbed the proposal I had worked on all night and headed to the 30th floor. Standing in the elevator, I felt a mix of unease and nervousness. George and I hadn't spoken properly for 2 months. And now, here I was, showing up to confront him. I rehearsed what I was going to say, trying to figure out how to speak without sounding too aggressive. "Sorry, Melissa, George isn't in the office today. If you need anything, you can tell me first, and I'll pass it along to him once he gets back." Anna, George's secretary, stopped me with a perfectly timed smile. I handed her the proposal and casually asked, "Where did he go?" "Today is Miss Jennifer's birthday. George has been planning for it for 2 months and is spending the day with her." My face froze. 2 months ago, George had handed me a project and left me to handle it on my own. Noticing my reaction, Anna seemed to remember something and hesitantly said, "Melissa, didn't you know?" I didn't want anyone to see my discomfort, so I forced a smile and replied, "I forgot. I've been so busy with the work lately, I didn't realize today was the day they were meeting. Thank you for your hard work, Melissa. George should be taking Jennifer to dinner now, and I've booked a private room for tonight. He mentioned some old friends are back in town and they're all going to eat together," Anna said, not noticing my unease. Knowing how hard I worked, I nodded, realizing Vincent must have returned to the country. Vincent had started a tech company abroad and had been gaining momentum since returning to the country a couple of years ago. Even posing a potential threat to the Sinclair Group, only Vincent could make the usually proud George go to the trouble of reserving a private room. It was always others inviting him. When had he ever invited anyone else? After getting the details of their dinner plans from Anna, I left. I stood outside the KTV, waiting for George and the others to come out. The winter air was cold, and after only a short while, I began to feel my legs and feet growing numb and stiff. The streetlights cast their glow on me, and as I looked at my shadow on the ground, old memories resurfaced. George and I officially got together when I was 18, in high school. He pursued me passionately, and I agreed to be with him if we both got into the same university. I liked him too, and I thought that request was simply me, in my youthful innocence, trying to encourage him to become a better version of himself for me. But in reality, I was wrong from the start. With the power his family held, he didn't need to work hard for anything. We ended up at the same university studying electronics and George studying finance. I got in through sheer hard work, while George was accepted because of his family's connections. I found out when he took me and his friends out for dinner, and one of his friends accidentally let it slip. I argued with him, but George didn't think it was a big deal. He actually thought I was being unreasonable and gave me the cold shoulder for an entire week. This issue ended with me compromising. Back then, George held me and said, "No matter what, we're together now." Melissa, don't be so picky, and that was that. I naively thought he loved me enough to choose the same college. It wasn't until now that I started to have doubts. Did George really attend the Design Institute for me? George, do you need me to drive you and Jennifer home? I snapped out of my thoughts at the sound of Nate, George's good friend, and looked up. George and Jennifer were surrounded by several people as they walked out, but Vincent was nowhere in sight. "No need, I haven't had any drinks," George replied with his usual cheerful laugh. So George isn't drinking tonight, just to drive his girlfriend home?" Nate joked exaggeratedly, and the others laughed along with him. I stared at them, and for a moment, I realized the gap between George and me was still as vast as ever. Jennifer, blushing, playfully hit George and turned to spot me standing under the street lamp. She froze, tugging on George. George followed her gaze and saw me, and for a moment, everyone fell silent. They all knew I had been with George for 7 years, that I would always be there for him. Even though they had always looked down on me, after all these years, they had tacitly accepted my presence. Suddenly being faced with such a scene, everyone fell awkwardly silent. "Well, George, I'll head back now. The wife's waiting for me." Tomas, the first of George's friends to marry, broke the silence. The others followed suit, leaving in 2s and 3s. Once they had all left, I finally spoke. "George, when did you and her get together?" Jennifer blinked, annoyed, and pinched George. George winced and quickly smiled an apology, seeing their little gestures. Even though I had prepared myself mentally, the pain still cut through me. I asked again, "George, when did you two get together?" George, holding Jennifer, spoke coldly. "Jennifer and I have been together for 2 months. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling cold. It was hard to tell whether it was the coldness in my heart or the chill in my body that was more overwhelming. I heard my voice crack with emotion. I said, "George, we haven't broken up." "This is cheating." George furrowed his brow, and every word he spoke from his thin lips felt sharper than the last. "I thought you knew. What we had was a transaction. After all these years, you've followed me around, and I haven't treated you badly. Did you really think you were my official girlfriend?" I stared at him in shock, as if for the first time in all these years, I truly saw the person standing before me. A transaction. What kind of transaction lasts 7 years? What kind of transaction involves being introduced to friends, going in and out together? I felt the sting in my eyes, and as soon as I opened my mouth, the tears began to pour out. "George, it was you who pursued me in the beginning." Jennifer furrowed her delicate brows and pinched George again. "Didn't you say that you were just betting with Nate and the others when you went after her?" Those words felt like a slap to my face, and I froze, feeling an icy chill wash over me, as though a bucket of cold water had been poured over my head. I looked at George in disbelief, hoping for an explanation. "Jennifer, don't be angry. It really was just a bet. She's the one who kept clinging to me," George said without looking at me, his gaze fixed solely on Jennifer. Jennifer, ignoring him, looked me up and down and sneered. "Did you hear that? A bet? Melissa, you're not a kid anymore. You should understand what self-respect and self-love mean by now." With that, she turned to George and started walking away, dragging him with her. "Why are you still talking to her?" "Let's go," she said dismissively. I stood there, pale-faced, my voice barely a whisper. So, when you said you were going to marry me, was that also a lie? Jennifer heard this and turned back to size me up from head to toe. Her words were sharp as a knife. That outfit you're wearing, it's from Balenciaga from a few years ago. You got promoted to director just this year, so with your abilities from the past few years, there's no way you could afford it. So, George must have bought it for you, right? She then looked at George, noticing that our clothes were almost identical. As if we were a couple. She pouted, about to get upset. George hurriedly took off his jacket and threw it on the ground, trying to cover up his actions. The styles are similar, that's all. It's not a big deal. Jennifer seemed slightly pacified, but then suddenly appeared to have thought of something funny. She sneered. Marry you? Why would he marry you? Is it charity? I looked down at the clothes on the ground, and the sadness in my heart nearly overwhelmed me. She was wrong. These clothes were something I had saved up for a long time to buy for George. I reached down to pick them up, but Jennifer stepped on them with her heel. Melissa, if you have any self-worth, you should know what self-respect means. After saying that, she tugged George away, and I stood there stiffly, watching their retreating figures. Melissa? What are you doing here? A cold voice rang out, accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps. It was Vincent. I quickly wiped the tears off my face, trying to look less disheveled. Vincent, long time no see. I didn't respond to his words, but his expression showed that he understood. I didn't want to face his gaze after all. He, George, and I all went to the same high school. Maybe he was in on the bet back then. So I turned to leave. Vincent grabbed my arm. Let me drive you. It's too cold for you to be out here alone. I looked seriously at his handsome face, realizing that there were some things I wanted to ask him, so I nodded. Okay, thank you. Hearing my agreement, Vincent's face lit up with a smile, making his already warm and gentle demeanor even more striking. He thought for a moment and then took off his scarf and offered it to me. I didn't take it and looked at him, saying, I'm not cold. Vincent firmly wrapped the scarf around my neck. Just wear it. I'm going to get the car. You'll freeze out here. Without waiting for my reply, he turned and walked away to get the car. Once in the car, I took off the scarf and placed it aside. Vincent saw what I did, but said nothing. His voice carried a hint of displeasure. Where do you live? Just as I was about to speak, I suddenly remembered that I still lived in the apartment George had given me. After all these years, he hadn't treated me poorly. I gave a self-deprecating smile. I don't want to go back. Could you take me to the nearest bar? Vincent pressed his lips together, said nothing, and started the car. The drive was quiet. Neither of us spoke. When we arrived at the bar, Vincent followed me inside. He said the bar wasn't safe. I didn't ask him to leave. Some things, perhaps, needed a couple of drinks before I could ask. 1 whiskey. Vincent glanced at me and told the bartender. Same for me. When the drinks arrived, I downed mine in one go and pushed it back to the bartender. Another. The strong liquor burned as it slid down my throat. Vincent stopped me. You're going to hurt your stomach if you keep drinking like that. I pushed him away, stubbornly signaling the bartender for another drink. The bartender hesitated, but, adhering to the principle of not letting money go to waste, brought me another whiskey and even kindly placed a bottle next to me. I picked it up and took another gulp. Vincent sat back silently, watching me. When the alcohol began to take effect, I gathered the courage to ask him, do you know that George pursued me as part of a bet? Vincent fell silent, avoiding my gaze. Melissa, he sighed, if you continue to degrade yourself like this, George won't care. I turned to look at him, and under the dim lighting, I thought I saw a trace of sorrow in his eyes. I shook my head, asking stubbornly, did you know about this? Vincent sighed again. I knew. I smiled bitterly and asked him, why didn't you tell me? Vincent and I were deskmates. While George relied on his family connections to get into our school, both Vincent and I were top students. Unlike George, I came from a poor family. While Vincent's background was more comfortable though not as wealthy as George's, it was still good, but Vincent never looked down on me. In fact, whenever I didn't understand something, he would explain it to me privately. I thought we were good friends. After all, we had always been able to talk about anything. It wasn't until George started pursuing me that our relationship began to fade. Later, in our senior year of high school, Vincent left to study abroad and didn't return until now. Melissa, when I found out, I wanted to tell you. But by then, you were already in love with him, and you even made it clear that if George could get into the same university as you would be with him. Vincent's words finally made me realize I had no right to blame him. It was my own fault. And there was no point in resenting others. I swayed my heavy head and buried it in my arms. Sorry, I overthought things. Vincent didn't say anything. He just leaned closer, reaching out as if to pat my head, but paused and didn't follow through. Then I heard him say, Melissa, I should have told you everything, no matter what, later, because I had drunk too much too quickly. I ended up throwing up in the nearby greenery when we left the bar. I hadn't eaten much, so all that came up was alcohol. The stomach acid burned my throat, and I couldn't help but let a couple of tears slip. Vincent silently patted my back as I continued to vomit. After I finished, I slowly stood up, and for a moment, I felt like we were back in high school. And our relationship was just as good as it had been. Vincent, why did you take so long? I asked. Vincent supported me and softly said, I'm sorry I was late. I thought he treated you well, and that's why you've been together for so many years. I didn't catch everything he said, as I was rambling on about past events, sometimes about him, sometimes about George. When Vincent brought me to the hotel, I was still muttering to myself. He gently patted me, trying to get me to sit up and drink some hot water. I end my days. I mistook him for George and suddenly bit his face. George, I hate you. I shouted. I was awakened by the sunlight. When I opened my eyes, I only felt a dull, painful sensation in my eyes and staring at the ceiling. I couldn't tell if it was today or yesterday. My mind replayed everything that happened last night. I threw up, and Vincent brought me to the hotel. Then what? I couldn't remember, so I endured the discomfort and sat up. Looking around, the decor clearly indicated that this was a presidential suite. I quickly threw off the blanket and checked myself. Luckily, my clothes were still on. I sighed in relief and went to the bathroom to freshen up before walking out. I happened to see Vincent in the living room, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. Tying his tie, he saw me in the mirror and tilted his head to look at me. You're awake? Are you hungry? There's a restaurant downstairs, or I can have something brought up. I pressed my still dizzy head and asked, I didn't do anything weird last night, did I? Vincent's expression changed slightly, then he looked at me with a smile, revealing the other half of his face and pointing at it. Does biting me count as something weird? I looked at the bite mark on his face, and fragments of memory flashed in my mind. It seemed, maybe, yes. It was really me who bit him. My face flushed, and I felt embarrassed. Sorry if you're feeling embarrassed. How about helping me with my tie? I'm not great at it, Vincent said with a teasing smile. I walked over, took the tie from his hands, and looked up at his tall height. I stood on my tiptoes, pressing down on his shoulder. Could you lower yourself a little? I can't reach, Vincent chuckled softly, saying. Little shorty. I glared at him and asked, Windsor knot or a simple knot? Vincent shrugged. Either's fine, up to you. I glanced at his shirt and started tying a Windsor knot. I usually tied a simple knot for George, but the Windsor knot was a bit trickier, taking more time. Vincent's breath brushed against my forehead, and I couldn't help but shrink my neck a little. There, done. Vincent straightened up. Not even bothering to check the mirror. Let's go. We'll have breakfast. I looked at him and asked, Aren't you going to check the mirror? No need, Vincent said, smirking as he walked ahead. Seeing that, I didn't say anything. After all, I wasn't the one going out. When we got to the restaurant, I was stunned to see that it was packed. This hotel's breakfast is quite popular. Even people who aren't staying here come just for the breakfast. Vincent explained. I nodded in understanding, scanning for an empty seat. I spotted a man and a woman with 2 empty seats in front of them. Before I could ask, Vincent spoke up. Should we ask them if we can join their table? I nodded and walked over with Vincent. Before I could even speak, I was shocked. I never expected that George and Jennifer would be here at the same hotel. Just as I was about to pull Vincent away, Jennifer spotted me. "Melissa? With Vincent?" She called out. I was forced to stop. George also turned around, his gaze intense and somewhat intimidating. Vincent stepped in front of me and looked at them. "What a coincidence, George, Miss Jennifer." Jennifer quickly scanned the surroundings and, with a smile, spoke. "There's no room elsewhere, so why don't we join you?" She paused, then asked, "Melissa, you don't mind, right?" Vincent turned to look at me. I knew he had business with the Sinclair family, so I nodded in agreement. After we sat down, Vincent kindly asked what I wanted to eat. Just as I was about to answer, George suddenly spoke. "Shall have the bacon toast," he said. His sudden comment caused the people at the table to exchange looks. I glanced at Jennifer's somewhat unpleasant expression and chose a different breakfast instead. The meal was uncomfortable. Before we had finished eating, Jennifer received a phone call and quickly left. Vincent and I finished our meal and were about to leave as well. "Vincent, we need to talk." George chased after us and called out to Vincent. Both Vincent and I turned to look at him. "If you have something to say, you can say it in front of Melissa," Vincent replied. I tugged at Vincent's sleeve. "You guys talk first. I'll wait over there," but George wouldn't let me go. "I need to speak to you privately." I was at a loss for words and didn't want to argue with him. Some things, however, needed to be clarified. I turned to Vincent. "You go ahead, I'll talk to him. I'll go get the car. Once you're done, he'll give you a ride," Vincent said before walking away. After he left, I turned to George. "I'll move out of the apartment as soon as I can. When did you get involved with him?" George and I spoke at the same time. I looked at him, confused. "That's none of your business." Hearing this, George's expression darkened, and he grabbed my arm. "Vincent isn't right for you. Break up with him." I couldn't help but laugh, trying to pull my arm away, but he held it tightly. I spoke in irritation. "What are you doing?" "George, wasn't it you who threw the clothes I bought you on the floor? Wasn't it you who said we had nothing to do with each other?" George pursed his lips and quickly replied, "You know my situation. Jennifer is the fiancée my family arranged for me. I have no choice. Then what's there to talk about? If you can't marry me, then why talk about marrying me?" I scoffed, regretting my past actions. I had met George's parents before. I had even humbled myself in front of them, trying to become someone worthy of him. I learned so much just to meet their expectations, especially after they told me, "George will inherit the company in the future, and his wife must know how to manage it." But no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, they never accepted me. All because I was raised by my grandfather, without parents. They humiliated me, saying that without proper parental guidance, I was missing something, especially in terms of manners. By that point, I thought all that mattered was whether George loved me. "Melissa, if you're willing, the apartment is still yours. I'll continue to treat you well," George suddenly said. I immediately understood his hidden meaning. Anger surged within me, and I slapped him across the face, the sound echoing through the parking lot. George's head was knocked sideways by the slap. I stared at him, my voice clear and sharp. "George, I'm not your toy." He pressed his tongue against the side of his face where I'd slapped him, staring at me with cold, emotionless eyes. "You'll come around, Melissa." Without hesitation, I turned and walked toward Vincent's car, not looking back. That will never happen in this lifetime. Soon, I understood why George was so certain that I would agree to his demands. When I arrived at the office in the afternoon, everyone was giving me strange looks, and I even overheard some people whispering. I pretended not to notice. After all, my serious and meticulous attitude had long made them uncomfortable, and the news about George and Jennifer must have already spread throughout the company. I didn't need to hear it to know what they were saying. It was probably something along the lines of me wanting to marry into a wealthy family. Following George for so many years without getting anything in return, I sat down at my desk, and the new assistant, Bella, walked over. Hesitating with pursed lips, I smiled gently at this hardworking young girl who had just joined and asked, "What's wrong, Melissa?" "Before you arrived, the company was already talking about how George fired you," Bella said quietly. I stood up in shock, not expecting George to make such a decision, especially since I had been handling several major projects for the company. "Melissa," Bella continued, her voice small, "the Sinclair family group isn't right for you." I forced a smile at her and was not surprised by her words. I went to find George. He was sitting on the sofa in his office, with 2 cups of tea placed on the coffee table. He must have anticipated that I would come to find him. I walked over, but didn't sit down, going straight to the point. "Why did you fire me?" George crossed his legs and casually rested his arm on the sofa. "Because you're not competent enough." I glared at him, anger rising, my voice becoming sharp. "Not competent enough?" "George, look me in the eye and tell me honestly, of all the projects I've done for the Sinclair family group over the years, which one didn't pass on the first try? If you want to keep working here, you can. But you'll have to be my mistress. And I'll consider not firing you." In the past, I thought his smile was charming, but now it made me feel nauseous. I picked up the tea on the table and splashed it at him. "In your dreams," George jumped up, the heat from the tea making him lose his composure. His voice shifted as he yelled, "Are you crazy?" I threw the cup down, turned, and walked away. As I opened the door, I saw Jennifer standing in the doorway, frozen, seemingly having overheard everything. I tried to walk past her, but she grabbed my arm. "Melissa, you're really disgusting." I shook her off and couldn't hold back my frustration, yelling, "You and George are a perfect match. A couple of lunatics." With that, I turned and walked away. I returned to my desk to pack up my things. As I was leaving the office, Bella ran after me. "Melissa, wait for me." I looked at her, surprised, as she came running towards me with her things in hand. "What are you doing?" Bella smiled awkwardly. "Melissa, I quit. I'm coming with you." I looked at her energetic expression, full of the spirit of "let's just go," and thought about how I had never been able to just leave on a whim. I had always endured whatever I was going through. I tried to advise her, "The Sinclair family group is a great place. You're interning here. It'll look good on your resume. Melissa, I think you're amazing. I want to work with you," Bella said, looking at me with admiration. I shook my head. "If you follow me, I won't be able to afford to start a company." Bella became excited. "I'll invest in you." I stared at her in surprise as she pulled me toward the company registration office without saying a word. I hurriedly stopped her, but she insisted on dragging me there. We were tugging at each other on the street. "What are you doing?" a cold voice rang out. I turned to see Vincent standing there, and I was curious how he ended up here. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. "I came to pick up my sister." Vincent shrugged. I instinctively replied, "Your sister works at the Sinclair family group." Then I turned to look at Bella. "Your sister." I looked back and forth between Bella and Vincent. Bella handed Vincent her things, and then she handed me my things as well. Without hesitation, she said, "Oh right, I'm his sister." I was stunned. No wonder Bella had been talking about how the Sinclair family group wasn't a good place, how George wasn't fit to be the president, and even telling me to quit as soon as possible. Bella pushed me into the passenger seat of Vincent's car. "Where are we going, Melissa?" Bella asked excitedly from the back seat. I snapped back to reality. "To Hong Kong community." I was going to pack up all my things from the apartment. On the way, I was searching for rental properties, frowning as I did. The cheaper ones had poor conditions, and the ones in better areas were too expensive. I sighed silently. "I have a vacant room at my place. You can stay there for now. The environment is good." Vincent suddenly spoke up. I turned to look at him, about to decline, but Bella quickly interrupted. "Melissa is moving out. Then you can stay at my brother's place. I can come visit you often." I couldn't refuse, so I reluctantly agreed to stay at Vincent's place. But I insisted on paying rent. I spent the whole night packing up my things in the apartment. As for George things, I didn't touch them. I left them exactly as they were, right in front of my eyes. In the past, I had carefully decorated this little home that belonged to us. When I left, I realized that I didn't have that much to take with me after all. Vincent met me at the door to help me carry my things. Bella had been called back home, leaving just me and Vincent together, which felt a little awkward. I broke the silence, looking for a topic. How did your sister end up working at Sinclair Family Group? Vincent suddenly grinned, looking like a fox. She's there to steal Sinclair Family Group's business secrets. I felt a bit embarrassed. Bella had just joined Sinclair Family Group, and most of what she did was try to convince me to leave. She hadn't even gotten into the core stuff and already followed me in quitting. Vincent seemed to see through my thoughts and reassured me. Bella has already stolen the most valuable secret of the Sinclair Family Group. I looked at him, confused. Vincent didn't explain further and changed the subject. Would you want to work at my company? I fell silent. Vincent's Brown Group was on the rise, and when I was at Sinclair Family Group, I often found it tricky to deal with projects that involved his company. Vincent spoke gently. It'll give you the biggest office, and you can still be a director. It'll give you shares and a bonus, and I believe you can lead Brown Group to the top. I looked at Vincent's eyes, not quite believing that he was offering such an enticing deal. I agreed and smoothly joined his company. Bella was thrilled when she found out and insisted on being my assistant. Vincent agreed to it. After I joined Vincent's company, I took on many projects. The companies that had previously worked with Sinclair Family Group started approaching me after hearing that I had switched to Brown Group, wanting to collaborate with them. Sinclair Family Group lost several major projects, and some of its shareholders came to me, hoping I would return. I ignored them. I became busier than ever, but I felt more fulfilled. My relationship with Vincent also grew stronger. After finishing the last project and celebrating, Vincent and I walked side by side down the street. Vincent wrapped a scarf around me, and as I looked at his deep eyes, I suddenly asked, Vincent, do you like me? Vincent's face turned red immediately. He stood there in a daze for a while, then, as if he had made up his mind, said, Yes, I like you, Melissa. I looked at his face, which was now tinted with a soft pink, and couldn't help teasing him. What did you just say? He suddenly closed his eyes and shouted, I like you, Melissa. I want to pursue you. I quickly covered his mouth, and he blinked at me. I couldn't help but laugh at him. What are you doing? I heard you. Vincent smiled with his eyes, blushing, and kissed the palm of my hand. I instinctively let go of his hand as if shocked, and my face turned red too. I looked down at the puddle on the ground, which reflected our shadows. I said, Vincent, I used to like someone very seriously for many years. Vincent, holding my hand, replied seriously, Melissa. I also liked someone very seriously for many years. I looked up at him, and he smiled at me, gently patting the top of my head. Later, Vincent and I officially started dating. After Bella found out, she went to Vincent. Bro, I've dug up the Sinclair Family Group secrets you asked for. What about the reward you promised me? Curious, I asked her. What secret? Bella smiled happily, looking at me. The secret? It's you. Melissa. I turned to look at Vincent, who had rushed out of the kitchen to stop Bella, seeing that things couldn't be hidden any longer. Vincent told me the truth. Bella had agreed to help him dig up the secret from Sinclair Family Group after he tempted her with 10 brand new seasonal handbags. I couldn't help but laugh as I looked at him awkwardly standing beside me. Bella had already slipped away. Vincent said he wanted to introduce me to his parents. I felt nervous and prepared a lot, even asking Vincent about his parents' preferences. I was afraid they'd look down on me for not having parents. Vincent reassured me, saying his parents were very easygoing and that they were so excited about me coming over that they couldn't even sleep. I punched him lightly, thinking he was joking, until the day we met, when I saw his parents looking more awkward than I was. I realized that Vincent had been telling the truth. His mom, Grace, washed fruit for me and gave me snacks. Melissa, eat more. You're looking too thin. These are all the snacks Vincent said you like. You should eat more. I remembered how Vincent had spoiled me with food and felt a little embarrassed. Thank you. Vincent, this kid, kept you hidden for so long. We've been waiting for this day for so long, Grace said with a smile. I thought she was talking about an old girlfriend of Vincent's. So I was about to explain when she continued, he even kept a picture of you hidden. I found it by accident. I blinked, glancing at Vincent, who was in the kitchen. That picture shouldn't be of me. How could it not be you? Wait here, Grace said, running into Vincent's room. After a while, she came back with a picture and handed it to me. This is you. I looked at the picture and was a little shocked. The person in the photo was young, innocent, holding some snacks in their hands, looking at the camera as if startled. This photo was taken by Vincent. At the time, I was eating a snack when Vincent called my name. As soon as I turned around, he snapped the photo with his newly bought camera. I never imagined that this photo had been kept by him. Grace continued, he's liked you for so many years. If it weren't for him going abroad before she could finish. Vincent interrupted. I didn't hear the rest of her words. I wanted to ask, but Vincent clearly didn't want to bring it up. I was a bit angry because Vincent wouldn't tell me why he went abroad. I drove the car, walking alone on the way home. After a while, George appeared on my way home. He had lost a lot of weight and looked like he was having a rough time. I tried to pass by him, wanting to leave. He grabbed my arm. Melissa, why did you go to Vincent's company? I shrugged his hand off and said word by word, does it concern you? George suddenly became agitated. He was a coward back then. I only threatened him a little, and he went abroad. Now he comes back, acting all high and mighty. I stopped and coldly looked at him. What did you threaten him with? George saw I had stopped, and his face showed a bit of pride. I did chase you because of a bet. But Vincent wasn't really serious about you. I asked again, what did you threaten him with? George dismissed it with a sneer. He overheard our bet, and not wanting you to know, I threatened him using his sister. I felt a surge of anger. I turned around and walked toward the car. George, not understanding, rushed to stop me, thinking I was about to leave. I coldly looked at him. Let go. George refused. I opened the trunk, grabbed a leather baseball bat, and started hitting George with it. Let go. How could I ever like a bastard like you, threatening people with a little girl? Are you even human? I chased after George, hitting him, and when Vincent arrived, this was the scene he saw. He hurried over and held me. Melissa, what happened? What did George do to you? Out of breath, I dropped the bat and threw myself into his arms, crying and apologizing. He must have felt heartbroken when he found out I had agreed to be with someone who had used his sister to threaten him. That's why he left without saying a word. It's okay, Melissa. I'm here. Vincent comforted me. He held me and walked past George, leaving. As he left, he turned to George and said, this won't be over so easily, later. Vincent swiftly took over several major Sinclair family group projects and exposed George's father's scandal. It turned out that George's father had an affair with Jennifer's mother. George and Jennifer were actually biological siblings. When I found out, I could barely believe it. The stocks of both the Sinclair family group and Biddle group plummeted quickly. Vincent seized the opportunity and acquired both the Sinclair family group and Biddle group at the lowest price, and I married Vincent. The wedding was grand, and the news spread across the internet. Our headlines were everywhere on the streets. As we walked together, Vincent held me gently. Slow down. Be careful with the steps. I looked at him with a smile. I'm only a month pregnant. Why are you being so careful? Vincent smiled sheepishly. The first 3 months are the most critical. Better be safe than sorry. Stop following me around. I looked up and, sure enough, it was George, with Jennifer following behind him. Both were dressed in cheap, street market clothes. When George saw me, his eyes lit up. But when he noticed Vincent holding my hand, his expression turned dark. He rushed over, but was stopped by security. Melissa, you can't do this to me. We were together for 7 years. I laughed at him, my gaze filled with disdain. If I'm not with him, who should I be with? You. George almost nodded, but I interrupted him. Why would I be with you? To do charity work. Vincent gently guided me away. leaving George struggling in fury. Blocked by security, Jennifer tried to go after him but was forcefully pushed aside by George. I didn't look back at them. George was never meant to be a boss. His parents were so sharp, yet they ended up with a fool like George. I glanced at Vincent, who was walking carefully beside me, and I reached out to touch him gently. Vincent blushed. I smiled contentedly. The world is so beautiful, and there's no need to waste energy on them.